Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday. I'm Renita Young, your host of Your Money Story. I'm also your personal finance curator, bringing you top influencers and high net worth individuals who know about money, who can help you plan yours down to the penny. Now, listen, today is a very great episode. Those of you who want to buy a home, or maybe you want to buy a second home, maybe you're getting into the process again, you don't want to miss this. I'm going to introduce in a little bit Leo Jean-Louis. He is a debt slayer. He and his wife Faith paid off $224,000 of debt in 2.5 years. They are homeowners, and they in fact are investors in real estate now. And so Leo Jean-Louis is coming on very shortly to teach you what you need to do to prepare to buy a home or buy another home. So hang on for a moment and let me grab Leo. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. I see you, Danielle. Hey, Sherelle. If you don't know about Sherelle Dorsey, then you should click on over to her page. Congratulations on the release of your new book. Much, much, much success to you at everything. It's so cool to see you shine. I see one of my high school friends here, Joy Norris. Hey, girl. And thank you for joining Brian Heath. You're welcome, Sherelle. So while we're waiting on Leo to come on, those of you who are in the room, are you homeowners yet? Is that something that you desire? And thank you, Sherelle. I appreciate that. That means a lot coming from you. But yeah, let me know. Are you a homeowner yet? Is it something that you desire? Have you found anything in your journey that you would help or that you would want to, help people with? I see Amber too. Thank you for joining. And Leo, I see Leo just joined, folks. I'm going to make sure he gets on. Let me try one more time. Hey, Leo. Good morning.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I am well, excited to join you today.
Yes, I've been thinking about this all week because I'd like to buy a home soon. I'm not a homeowner yet.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who've joined us who aren't either, or maybe they want to buy a second home and they want to go about it a different way. So we're gonna talk. So thank you so much for being here.
Awesome.
Of course, of course. But of course, this is Your Money Story, and we start with your money story. So what many of us know about you is that you're based in Atlanta, you and your wife, Faith, with your child, and you guys paid off $224,000 of debt in 2.5 years. That's an amazing feat. But you had a whole story before that. So what was your relationship with money like growing up?
Yeah, so I am a first generation Haitian American. So growing up, I learned to be content with what I had. We didn't have much, but we had each other. And so I took that with me growing up. That I think helped me avoid a lot of the things that my generation gets trapped in, which is buying the flashy stuff, making sure that you're showing that you have money instead of actually having money. So wearing it, driving it. And so I was able to avoid a lot of those things, but I only knew about saving. So I didn't know much about investing. I knew, work hard, learned that from my mom, who's the hardest working person I know. So I learned a good work ethic, learned to save my money, but had no idea about investing or even paying off debt. And so I kind of had to figure things out as I went along and was faced with, 6 figures of student loan debt. And I tried to get a home, actually. So I don't know if you know this part of my story. I tried to get a home when my wife and I were courting, and I was denied because I put my student loans on forbearance. And so that was so that was my first wake up call, because the lender was like, hey, how do you expect us to give you a loan for 200 plus thousand and you're not even paying on your student loans? Which
Wow.
shows, so forbearance shows a hardship, And so they're not going to lend 200 plus thousand to someone who's in hardship. And so that was my first wake up call. It was like, okay, I need to figure out my debt situation and then go back to the drawing board and
Mhm.
see how I can purchase a home. And so doesn't mean you have to be debt free before you purchase a home, but definitely need to be addressing the whole picture.
That is so interesting. Never thought about that. That is something to look at, folks. If you've agreed to delay your federal student loan payments until the moratorium is up, that is something to consider. I think that I identify with that as well, with the student loan part, because I'm a millennial as well. And when we were going to college, so many people told it, just take out the loans. You
Yeah.
need, pay for the network essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we got through college and we found out we could have possibly met a lot of these folks
Yeah.
without paying for the high degree, possibly.
Uh-huh.
But you had a change. And so you started to implement those things as early as when you were in college, right?
As far as the changes to my situation,
Right. Or you
my,
started to become aware and you started to think about it more conscientiously.
so yes and no. So I'll give you
Hmm.
a quick story of my my advice that was given to me. So I was in college. I was working summer at K&G. I don't know if they still exist, but K&G.
Yeah.
And my manager told me to, well, I went to Best Buy on a lunch break to buy a camera because I was traveling that summer. I was actually going to Haiti that summer, and I bought a $300 camera, which was, DSLR, big deal back in the day. And he
Hmm.
said, "Hey, how much was that camera?" And I told him, and he was like, "Okay, you can put money towards your interest on your student loans while you're in school. You have this job, you're working while you're in school, you can put money towards interest." And I was like, yeah, it sounds like a good idea, but I never took heed to it. And so when I graduated college and I, had my first job out of college, I didn't want to pay anything back, actually. I was like, okay, I had sacrificed 4 years of college and then
Yeah.
another 2 years for grad school. I don't want to pay this back. And so that's what led me to putting my loans on forbearance.
Okay.
And so the wake up call really didn't come until well, one of the wake up calls was when I got the denial from the mortgage lender. And then, I started paying them back. And then a year later, I eventually got a home. But I had put a plan in place to address the debt. And that opened up the doors for me to eventually get a home.
Okay. Sounds good. And that's something that obviously could hamper you from buying a home. What were some of the things before we get into the steps? Well, this is part of the steps,
Hmm.
to preparing to buy a home. But what were some of the main things that you did to control your debt so that you're able to buy a home? Like you said, it's not necessary to be completely debt
Right.
free to buy a home, but what did you do to control yours?
Yeah, so the first thing we did was determine our budget. So how much house we can afford. And you do that by having a budget. You need to know how much you can realistically allocate towards a mortgage payment. And a lot of people think that, hey, I'm paying $1,200 in my rent. I can go buy a home and pay $1,200 in the mortgage.
Mhm.
But that's not all that having a home entails. So home ownership, you now are responsible for additional expenses. So if you live in a community that has an HOA, that's an additional expense on top of your mortgage. Taxes, you have maintenance and repairs. You can't just call the leasing office to get things fixed. You actually have
Mhm.
to take care of them. And so there are additional costs to home ownership. So you just want to make sure that you account for all of those things. You can do that by using a house affordability calculator. You can Google that and find one, or you can just write out your budget and see what you can realistically afford. And what I tell people to do is pretend like you have that mortgage payment and those additional expenses already and see how
Mhm.
that fits. Do that for a few months. Do that for 3 to 6 months to make sure that you can realistically afford the home that you want to get. Start looking on the MLS or realtor.com or Redfin of homes in your area that you're interested in.
Mhm.
And if you scroll down, you can see the calculator based on the percentage of your down payment. You'll see all of those costs broken down and what your expected monthly mortgage payment would be and pretend like you have that payment now.
Very smart decision, because then it won't be such a shock to your budget. And then you get a realistic
Yes.
view of how much can I actually afford.
Yes.
And maybe even going a little bit above that, you can put that into your, I don't know, savings or money market account to be able to save for the
Yes.
down payment.
And one thing,
Someone, oh, go ahead, go
yeah,
ahead.
one thing I will say too is when you're calculating how much house you can afford, one rule of thumb that I like to tell clients is that make sure your mortgage payment is no more than 25 to 28% of your monthly take-home pay. That way you're not buying more house than you can actually afford, and you have room in your budget to pay for all of your other expenses. Don't wait for the mortgage broker or lender to figure that out for you. Make sure you figure that out and keep that realistic. I've had clients who've come to me with 50% of
50.
their take-home pay going towards a mortgage payment. Like that
I mean,
person.
I'm sure that's common out here in New York where I am.
Uh-huh. That
I'm
person has
sure it's
no room to
common.
save, no room to save, no room to
Yeah.
invest. And you have to, you have to still eat and drive and do all that other stuff.
Wow.
Take. And so it's really, really important that you keep it 25 to 28%. And that can fluctuate depending on your income, but
Mhm.
that's a general guideline that I like to tell folks to follow.
That's perfect. I was just going to ask that question, and someone actually asked that question in the comments. Michelle, I see you. So it's 25% you suggest of take home pay, not of your gross.
No, you want to make sure because that's coming out of your mortgage payments coming out of your take home pay.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to make sure you have enough money so that you're not house poor at the end of the day. What good is a nice, beautiful house with a white picket fence if you don't have any furniture in it, or if you can't
Or
you
food you
can't put
can't
the
even.
heat up during the winter?
Right.
So
No, honestly. And so many people correct and explain. I think it may be self explanatory, but for the
mhm.
folks who may not understand 100%, explain what house poor means.
Yeah, so when you have the house, but you don't have enough money to actually put things in it or to live comfortably, and so you're sacrificing these other areas of your life just so that you can have the house to say you had it. And so
Mm-hmm.
you can pay the mortgage payment, but maybe you can't keep the heat where you need it in the winter or the AC on in the summer,
Mm-hmm.
or you,
Which is
you can't
another
buy
trap, I
furniture.
think. Oh, well, I think that's another trap that millennials fell into graduating from college. A lot of us were so dead set on buying a home right out of college
Hmm.
when, we didn't even really understand how to control our college loan debt if we had any
Right.
yet. But so an obvious part of this as well is to check your credit score, right?
Yes.
And so just the difference in between a few points can impact your home buying process, right?
Yes, and so the higher your credit score, the more favorable your rates will be. And so some of those rates that you see advertised, those are for people with the best credit score. So you definitely want to make sure you know what your credit score is and where you fall along that continuum. I spoke to a mortgage lender one time. He told me, I asked him, what's the score for, to get the best rate? And, he said, 680 and up. And then at a certain point, it doesn't really matter, right?
Mhm.
But he says the lower your score, you may still find lenders who give you a mortgage, but you're going to get punched in the face. And that's his way of basically saying, hey, if you come with a low credit score, one, you'll either get denied or you'll get punched in the face, meaning you'll get a higher interest rate and you'll pay for
Mm.
that. And so he said the lower your, I was like, what if you have, in the 500s? He's like, you'll get punched in the face twice. And so,
Twice.
uh,
Ouch.
yes. And so
Okay.
definitely want to make sure that you are managing your money well, which is reflected in your credit score, and that you have that in place before you go out to buy a home.
But one thing you say, not but, and one thing you
Hmm.
say that people can do is research different loan options and
Yes.
first time buyer assistance programs, which in some states or some cities, municipalities, you
Yes.
attend a first time home buyer course and you get access to
Yes.
different kinds of first-time home buyer assistance programs. So tell us about some of the first-time home buyer assistance programs that exist out there.
Yeah, so NACA is one of them. They have a long, tedious process, but I've heard people getting really, really low interest rates. And so it's NACA. You can Google that and, go to a meeting. I attended one early on in my search for a home, and I found it very informative, and it works for a lot of people, so you can look that up. But you can also Google, because it'll be different depending on where you live, and
Mm-hmm.
the benefits will be different. So if you Google first time homebuyer down payment assistance programs, those will come up, and you can see which ones apply to you and what the eligibility requirements are.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously there's a need to save for your down payment. And you gave
Yes.
us ideas earlier,
Yeah.
just a brilliant idea to begin the moment you think you want to buy a house, right?
Yeah.
Start paying what you think may possibly be your mortgage into a savings account. You know, any
Yes.
other unique ways that you have for that you suggest people save for down payments? Maybe get side hustles or.
Yep, side hustles for sure. There's no limit on the amount of money that you can make outside of your 9 to 5. And so I always encourage folks to look for ways to maximize the knowledge, the talent, the expertise that they have to earn money, and put that aside in like a high yield savings account. I know they're not too high right now, the interest rates, but they're a lot higher than your traditional brick and mortar banks. And so do it and then set up automatic contributions. So once you have
Yes.
that amount that you want to put aside, set that aside in the online high yield savings account. You can create a sinking fund for this. So let's say as a first time home buyer, you're putting 3.5% down on a $300,000 home. That's about, let's say, $10,000. You would divide that by how long it takes for you to want to purchase that home. So let's say it's a year out. You take that $10,000 divided by 12 months, and you put that monthly payment aside into your savings account, so that by the time the year rolls around, you have that money ready to go as a
Mm-hmm.
down payment.
Excellent. And so the importance of finding a good real estate agent. I would bet that you've had experiences with different kinds of real estate agents, right? So tell us why this is so important to find one that really understands what you need, and maybe even understands you.
Yes, and so buying a home is one of the largest financial decisions you'll ever make. So you want to make sure that you're crossing all of your T's and dotting all of your I's, right? And so a good real estate agent is an important part of your team. And so you want to make sure that you have someone who's not in it just to make the commission, right? You want someone
Mhm.
who's not going to rush you into making decisions that you'll regret later on. You want someone who understands the market. You want someone who, I like working with people who educate as well, because
Yeah,
I like to learn. And so I want someone who's willing to educate me on the process, especially if I'm new to it as a first-time home buyer. And so
very good.
someone who understands the market, someone who will say, hey, I know you like this house, but because of X, Y, and Z, this is why I would stay away from it. And that
Hmm.
person, you can trust. If they're willing to turn things down because it doesn't make sense for what you've communicated to them, then you have a good agent.
And also maybe a person who can help you refine your expectations if you need, right?
Yes, for
Relative
sure.
to your budget.
For sure,
or can
especially in this market that we're in.
Yeah. Or can like help push you that way if you're willing to wait a little bit longer, you know. So we're almost at a close now, but let's talk just a brief moment about these first time home buyer courses. What are some of the benefits of them?
One is knowledge, access to knowledge. I think when we know better, we can do better, right? Doesn't mean we will do
Yep.
better, but we can do better. And so I think having the knowledge of what to expect, the process from beginning to end, will help you be at ease with this big expense that you're about to make, and kind of relieve some of the fear that you have, and set those realistic expectations. But then you also know, your numbers, how to prepare, like the down payment, depending on the program that you choose. It can require as little as 3.5%, or you can do 5% for a conventional. And then closing costs, which are part of the process, can be between 2 to 5% of the mortgage. And so I think helping you become prepared and be confident in your decision to act when an opportunity comes before you, so you're not getting beat out by all of the other buyers in the market.
Or punched in the face
Or
by
punched in the face. Yes, or punched in the
we don't want
face.
anybody to get punched in the face.
Yes.
Listen to Leo. So you teach these and other debt related things in your Debt Slayers boot camp. So tell us
Yeah.
just briefly what people can expect to learn in your Debt Slayers boot camp.
Yeah, so we help people become debt free without sacrificing their vacations or their desire to pursue life goals like buying a home, so that they can enjoy life today. And so in our boot camp, we discuss budgeting, we discuss side hustles, we discuss emergency fund, all of those things that you need to have in place before paying off your debt or pursuing major goals like buying a home. And so we cover all of those basics. We go into student loans, how to pay them off, how to pursue public service loan forgiveness, all of the things that you need to know in order to create a debt-free plan you can be confident in.
Fantastic. And if you guys want to learn more about the Debt Slayer Bootcamp, you can go to debtslayerbootcamp.com. Leo, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Of course, folks, if you want to learn more about Leo, head on over to his Instagram page where he's got links to all his services and other programs that he has going. I'm Renita Young. This is Your Money Story. And Leo, everybody else, have a lovely day.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.